If you'd told me a week ago that my childhood best friend would confess he was in love with me right in the middle of my wedding weekend, I'd have told you to stop watching so many romantic movies. But here I am, 3 days away from the biggest day of my life, and the entire world just got flipped upside down. I'm Jack, by the way, and when I say childhood best friend, I mean it in the way people say it when they've practically grown up as two halves of the same soul. That's Lucas. We met in the sandbox when we were 4, and we've been inseparable ever since. He's the guy who knew every embarrassing secret about me, the one who got me through every heartbreak before I even knew what love was, the one I trusted more than anyone else. Lucas is that guy who's always been a little quieter, a little more thoughtful, but with this dry humor that sneaks in when you least expect it. Tall, with dark hair that's always a mess from running his hands through it when he's thinking too hard. And those eyes, honestly, if you ever caught him staring off like that, it felt like he was seeing a whole other world I wasn't invited to. The thing is, Lucas never really dated anyone seriously. Not because he wasn't interested, but I think he was waiting for something he couldn't quite put into words. Until now, I thought I understood him completely. Turns out, I didn't. So, here's a little backstory before I get to the crazy part. I met Daniel in college, and we clicked right away. He's funny, kind, ambitious, the kind of guy you imagine when you think perfect partner. We started dating, moved in together, and eventually, I proposed. And now, the wedding is just days away. Everyone's expecting this picture-perfect celebration of love. Except Lucas has just dropped a bomb on me that makes me question everything I thought I knew. He showed up at my parents' house, the place where we were all catching up for the weekend, looking like he hadn't slept in days. I thought maybe something serious was wrong with his family or work. Nope, he wanted to talk to me. Alone. We ended up sitting in the backyard under those big old oak trees we used to climb as kids. The sun was setting, casting this warm glow, and I could tell he was nervous in a way I'd never seen before. Then, out of nowhere, Lucas tells me he's been in love with me for years. Not like a passing crush, but a deep, constant feeling that's been growing since we were teenagers. I don't know if it was the shock or just the way he said it, but my heart started pounding so hard I thought it might burst. Here I was, about to marry someone I love, yet hearing this from the one person who's been a part of me since forever. And now I'm stuck between the past and the future, trying to figure out if this friendship is enough or if it's something more that I never saw coming. The wedding clock is ticking, and I have no idea how I'm supposed to keep pretending everything's normal. So yeah, that's where I'm at. On the edge of the happiest day I've planned in my life, and also the most confusing conversation I never thought I'd have. And somehow, I'm supposed to make sense of it all before I say, I do. We sat there for what felt like hours, the sky darkening around us, Lucas fiddling with a loose thread on his sleeve while I struggled to find words that didn't make me sound like a complete idiot. I mean, how do you even respond when your best friend, your childhood twin and all but blood, drops something like that on you right before your wedding? I didn't want to say anything before. He finally broke the silence, voice barely above a whisper. I thought maybe it was just me, or that it would pass, but it didn't. Not even close. I nodded because, honestly, what else could I do? It was like this whole time I had been so focused on the future with Daniel, I hadn't even considered the possibility that Lucas's feelings could be real, or that they might matter. But now that he'd said it out loud, I couldn't just shove it back into the corner of my mind. Why now? I asked, because it felt important. Why the weekend of my wedding? He shrugged, looking away. Because I didn't want to lose you. Not like this. Pretending we're okay when you're about to marry someone else. I thought if I didn't tell you, it'd eat me alive. I could see the sincerity in his eyes, the kind of raw honesty you only get from someone who's been with you through every stupid mistake and every triumph. And that's when it hit me. Maybe I had been so focused on what I thought I wanted, I'd ignored what was right in front of me. But there was this knot in my stomach, this voice screaming that I couldn't just throw away everything with Daniel over a confession that came out of nowhere. I love Daniel, I said softly, almost like I was reminding myself. I want to marry him. But this changes everything. Lucas looked like he was about to say something else, but then he just nodded, standing up suddenly. I get it. I'm sorry for messing up your weekend. No, I said, grabbing his arm before he could walk away. Don't do that. I need to process this. For the next couple of days, everything felt off. I was surrounded by friends and family, the usual wedding chaos. Dress fittings, last-minute tastings, seating charts. But inside, I was battling this whirlwind of emotions that wouldn't quiet down. Lucas was around a lot too, like always. But now there was this unspoken tension between us. Every glance felt loaded. Every accidental touch sent a jolt through me. I caught him staring more times than I could count. And once, late at night when the house was quiet, he said, "I know this is hard for you. Just know I'm here no matter what happens." I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that things could go back to the way they were. But something had shifted, and I wasn't sure if it could be undone. The night before the rehearsal dinner, Daniel pulled me aside in the kitchen. He'd noticed the distance, the way I wasn't fully present. "Jack, what's going on?" he asked, concern etched into his face. I wanted to tell him everything. About Lucas, about the confession, about how I felt like my whole world was unraveling. But I couldn't find the words. Not yet. Just wedding jitters. I lied, forcing a smile. He nodded, but I knew he wasn't buying it. That night, I found myself wandering outside, searching for some kind of clarity under the stars. To my surprise, Lucas was there too, leaning against the fence, looking up at the sky. "Can't sleep?" I asked. He shook his head. "Too much on my mind." We stood there in silence for a while, the kind that felt comfortable, like old times. Then he said, "Jack, I don't want to make things harder for you, but I need to know. Do you think there's any chance for us after all this?" I took a deep breath. "I don't know, Lucas. I really don't." Because the truth was, part of me wondered if I'd been blind to my own feelings all these years. But I also knew that the choice I was about to make would change everything. Not just my life, but his too. And with the wedding less than 48 hours away, I was standing at a crossroads I never expected, torn between the past I thought I'd left behind and a future I'd spent so long dreaming about. I had to figure out what my heart really wanted before it was too late. The next morning, I woke up with the weight of everything pressing down on me. It's strange how the mind tries to focus on the small things when the big stuff feels overwhelming. I found myself staring at the ceiling, replaying memories of Lucas and me, from scraped knees on the playground to late-night talks about our dreams. It was like a slideshow running in my head, and every frame made me question what I thought I knew about us. Breakfast was a quiet affair. Daniel tried to keep things light, cracking jokes and asking about the day's schedule. But I could tell he felt the distance between us. Lucas was there too, sitting at the far end of the table, his eyes occasionally flicking toward me. It felt like the air was charged, but no one wanted to be the one to break the silence. Later, we all gathered for the rehearsal. The chapel was this beautiful little place with stained glass windows that filtered the sunlight into a kaleidoscope of colors. Standing there, surrounded by friends and family, I kept thinking about how soon I'd be saying the vows I'd written with Daniel. And yet, Lucas's words echoed in my mind. Those years of love, those unsaid feelings that now felt impossible to ignore. After the ceremony practice, I stepped outside for some fresh air. Lucas was already there, leaning against the stone wall, hands shoved deep into his pockets. I walked over, the nervous energy between us thick enough to cut with a knife. "I don't want to ruin your day tomorrow," I said quietly. He shrugged, eyes fixed on the horizon. "I don't want to ruin it either, but I can't pretend anymore." We stood there in silence for a while, the sounds of laughter and chatter from inside the chapel fading into the background. Then he turned to me, this raw vulnerability in his gaze that I'd never seen before. "Jack, I've been in love with you for so long, I don't even remember a time when I wasn't. It's not just some crush. It's part of who I am. And I know you love Daniel, and I don't expect anything to change because of what I said. But I had to be honest with you." I swallowed hard, feeling my throat tighten. "I appreciate that, Lucas. More than you know." He gave me a small, sad smile, and just like that, the moment was over. We went back inside, pretending everything was normal, but I could feel the cracks forming beneath the surface. That night, lying in bed next to Daniel, I felt like I was living a double life. He was peaceful, unaware of the storm raging inside me, and I hated that my heart was split between two people who meant everything to me in completely different ways. The morning of the wedding arrived in a blur of excitement and nerves. The house was buzzing with activity. Hairdressers, photographers, relatives fussing over details. I went through the motions, putting on a brave face, but every time I caught Lucas's eye, I felt that familiar ache. During the ceremony, standing at the altar with Daniel, I kept my gaze steady, focusing on the man who had been my partner through college, the one I hoped to build a life with. But just as I was about to say my vows, I noticed Lucas slipping out the side door, his expression unreadable. Later, at the reception, the party was in full swing. Friends were dancing, laughing, toasting to our happiness. I tried to get into it, but my mind kept drifting back to Lucas. He was there, but distant, watching from the sidelines. Finally, after what felt like too long, I found him outside on the balcony, staring up at the stars. "Hey," I said softly. He turned, surprised but not startled. "Hey." We leaned against the railing together, the noise of the party muffled behind us. "Do you regret telling me?" I asked. He shook his head. "No, I needed to be honest. Even if it hurts." I looked at him, really looked at him. The way his jaw clenched, the way his eyes shimmered with unshed emotion, and I realized something important. No matter what I decided about my future with Daniel, Lucas would always hold a piece of my heart. "Lucas, I don't know what the future holds," I admitted. "But I do know that you're part of my story. And I want us to figure this out somehow." He smiled, a genuine, hopeful smile that made my chest tighten. "Then we'll figure it out," he said. And in that moment, beneath the stars, with the world spinning crazily around us, I felt the first flicker of something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope, not just for tomorrow, but for whatever came next. The rest of the reception was a blur of smiles that didn't quite reach my eyes, and laughter that felt like it belonged to someone else. Daniel was perfect, kind, attentive, the kind of guy who made everyone feel at ease, and I wanted to be happy for him. I really did. But my mind kept drifting back to Lucas, to that quiet moment on the balcony that somehow made all the noise fade away. After the last guests left, and the house finally quieted down, I found myself alone in the living room, tracing the rim of my glass with a shaky finger. That's when Lucas appeared, as if he'd been waiting for me. "You okay?" he asked, settling beside me on the couch. I shrugged. "I don't know. I want to be, but everything feels complicated." He nodded. "I get that. It's not like we can just press pause and figure this out on our own time." We sat there, the silence between us filled with all the words we weren't saying. Then, without thinking, I reached over and took his hand. It was warm, familiar, and it made my heart skip a beat. "I don't regret what you said," I told him softly. "It just caught me off guard. I've never thought about us like that before." Lucas squeezed my hand gently. "Maybe you didn't have to." I laughed, a short, nervous sound. "God, I sound like an idiot." "No, you sound honest," he said. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I was carrying the weight of the world. I had to face Daniel, who was waiting for me with that hopeful look that made me want to be the man he believed I could be. But I also had to face myself and whatever this new reality meant. Over breakfast, Daniel asked if I wanted to go for a walk. I agreed, thinking maybe some fresh air would help clear my head. We wandered through the nearby park, the sun filtering through the trees and casting dappled shadows on the path. I told him everything about Lucas's confession, how it made me question things, how lost I felt. Daniel listened without interrupting, his expression thoughtful. When I finished, he reached out and took my hand. "Thank you for being honest with me," he said. "I love you, Jack. That hasn't changed." His words hit me harder than I expected. Daniel loved me. He'd stood by me through everything, and here I was, torn between who I was with him and who I might be with Lucas. "I don't know what the next step is," I admitted, "but I want to be fair to you and to myself." Daniel smiled, a mix of sadness and understanding in his eyes. "Then we'll take it one day at a time. No pressure, just whatever feels right." When I told Lucas about the conversation later that day, he nodded, relief washing over his face. "I don't want to hurt anyone," he said quietly. "Least of all you." "I know," I said, "and I don't want to lose you either." That night, Lucas and I stayed up talking until the early hours, sharing memories, fears, and hopes. It felt like peeling back layers we'd both been hiding, and for the first time, I saw him not just as my best friend, but as someone who could mean so much more. But reality kept creeping in. The wedding was over, the guests gone, and now I had to figure out what I wanted from life. Could I walk away from the future I'd planned with Daniel? Could I risk everything for a chance with Lucas? The days that followed were filled with difficult conversations, both with the people in my life and with myself. Daniel and I agreed to take a break, to give me space to think. It wasn't easy. There was guilt, confusion, and a deep sadness, but it felt necessary. Meanwhile, Lucas was there, steady and patient like he always had been. We started spending more time together, rediscovering the bond that had been there since we were kids, but now carried a new, fragile hope. One afternoon, we took a walk to the old playground, the one we'd spent so many hours at as kids. Sitting on the swings, I looked at Lucas and realized that no matter where this went, I was lucky to have him in my life. "Do you think we can really make this work?" I asked him. He smiled that crooked smile I knew so well. "I don't know, but I'm willing to try, if you are." And for the first time in a long time, I felt like maybe, just maybe, the future wasn't as uncertain as it seemed. Because sometimes, the hardest moments lead to the most unexpected beginnings. I never thought the hardest part would be telling Daniel that I needed space. Sitting across from him in our apartment, the sunlight pouring in through the windows, I fumbled with my words like a kid trying to explain a broken toy. "I think I need some time to figure things out. About us, about me." His face went pale, but he nodded slowly. "If that's what you need, Jack, I want you to be honest with me, always." It felt like both a relief and a heartbreak all at once. We agreed on a temporary pause. No calls, no visits, just time. It was supposed to help me untangle the mess in my head, but all it did was make the silence deafening. Lucas was the one constant in the storm. We fell into an odd rhythm, spending afternoons wandering familiar streets, revisiting places that held pieces of our past. It was strange, feeling the warmth of his hand in mine without it feeling like a secret anymore. There was this quiet understanding between us that didn't need words. One evening, we ended up back at our old spot, the playground where we'd spent countless summers. The swings creaked as we sat side by side, the scent of freshly cut grass filling the air. I looked over at Lucas, watching the way the fading sunlight caught the edges of his hair, and felt something I hadn't dared to admit: hope. "Do you ever think about how different things might have been if we'd said this stuff when we were younger?" I asked him. He smiled softly. "All the time. But I guess we were just figuring ourselves out." I nodded, feeling both the weight of lost years and the thrill of new possibilities. "So, what now? Where do we go from here?" Lucas turned to me, eyes serious. "One step at a time. No pressure. Just seeing where this leads." It was reassuring and terrifying all at once. We started spending more time together, sharing dinners, late-night talks, and even silly movie marathons. It was like rediscovering each other, but with new layers underneath. I found myself laughing more, my heart feeling lighter in a way it hadn't in years. But the shadow of the wedding still lingered. Daniel reached out a few times, checking in, but I wasn't ready to talk. I knew eventually I'd have to face those conversations, explain my feelings, and maybe even confront the pain I was causing. One afternoon, Lucas and I met for coffee in that little cafe down the street, the one where we'd once mapped out our imaginary road trip across the country. We sat in our usual booth, the hum of quiet conversation around us. "I've been thinking," Lucas said, stirring his drink absent-mindedly. "Maybe it's time to stop hiding from this. From us." I looked at him, heart pounding. "You mean, tell people? Like, be open about it?" He shrugged, a bit nervous. "Yeah, I don't want to sneak around or pretend anymore. If this is real, I want to live it honestly." The idea terrified me. Coming out again, this time not just as who I am, but as someone caught between two loves. It felt messy, complicated, But I also knew Lucas was right. Living in the shadows wasn't fair to either of us. Okay, I said finally. We do it together, one step at a time. That night, I called Daniel. My voice trembled as I explained where I was, how I needed to be honest not just with myself but with him. There were tears on both ends of the phone, but also a kind of understanding that surprised me. I want you to be happy, Jack, he said softly, even if it's not with me. Hearing that broke something open inside me. The guilt, the confusion, the love tangled in every word. But it also gave me permission to breathe, to let go of what I thought I was supposed to do, and start exploring what I truly wanted. In the weeks that followed, Lucas and I slowly stepped into this new chapter. We told a few close friends who were supportive in ways that made me feel lucky and scared all at once. Each conversation felt like peeling back a layer, revealing pieces of myself I'd kept hidden for too long. One evening, after a long day of talking and laughing and just being, Lucas reached out and pulled me close. His hand found the back of my neck, fingers threading through my hair as he leaned in. Our lips met, gentle at first, then with a growing urgency that left me breathless. In that moment, under the soft glow of the street lamp outside his apartment, it felt like all the years of silence and secrets were melting away. Like finally, after everything, we were exactly where we were meant to be. I don't know what the future holds. There are still hard conversations ahead, and moments when doubt creeps in. But for the first time in a long time, I feel ready to face them, with Lucas by my side, as more than just my best friend. Sometimes life throws you curveballs that you never see coming. Sometimes the person you thought was just part of your past becomes the one who changes everything. And maybe, just maybe, that's where the real story begins. Those weeks after that night felt like walking a tightrope, balancing between what I thought my life should be and what it was becoming. Lucas and I were figuring out this new us, but it wasn't without its awkward moments and sudden bursts of doubt. One afternoon, Lucas invited me over to his place, this small, cluttered apartment that smelled faintly of coffee and old books. We were sitting on his couch, half watching some random documentary while our hands found each other's like instinct. I could tell he was nervous, twisting a loose thread on the sleeve of his sweater, something he did when he was thinking too hard. "Jack," he said suddenly, voice low. "Have you told anyone else? Like your family?" I hesitated. "No, not yet. My parents love you, obviously, but I don't know how to bring it up. It's all so new." Lucas nodded, understanding. "Same here. My folks are traditional, you know? I'm scared about how they'd react." The quiet stretched between us, filled with all the unspoken fears. Then Lucas gave me this small, hopeful smile. "But I think they'll come around. They have to, because this," he gestured between us, "is real." I wanted to believe that, but the thought of facing those conversations made my chest tighten. It wasn't just about telling people. I was wrestling with what it meant for my identity, for the life I'd planned. Later that weekend, we went to a small cafe downtown, the kind with mismatched chairs and handwritten menus. As we sat sipping coffee, Lucas reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Are you happy?" he asked, eyes searching mine. I took a moment, trying to be honest with myself. I don't know if I'm completely happy yet, but I feel like I'm finally living, like I'm starting to be honest with myself. He smiled, relief, and something softer shining in his gaze. "That's all I want for you, for us." The days were full of small discoveries, learning how to be more than friends, how to navigate the awkward firsts that come when you shift from just us to something more. Our first official date was a clumsy, beautiful mess. We went for dinner at a little Italian place Lucas loved, and I spilled red wine on the tablecloth within the first 5 minutes. "Smooth," he teased, grinning. "Hey, I'm trying," I shot back, laughing. It felt natural, comfortable, and terrifying all at once. But then reality reared its head again. One afternoon, I got a text from Daniel. It was simple. "Can we talk?" My heart sank. I knew this conversation was coming, but that didn't make it any easier. We met at a quiet park bench, the sun filtering through the trees as I prepared myself for the hardest talk of my life. Daniel looked me in the eye, pain and understanding mixed together. "I just want you to be happy, Jack," he said. "If that's not with me, I need to know." I swallowed hard. "I'm sorry, Daniel. I never wanted to hurt you, but I can't pretend anymore." I'm still figuring things out, but I know that what I'm feeling for Lucas, it's real. He nodded slowly. Thank you for telling me. I hope you find what you're looking for. Walking away from that conversation, I felt the weight of loss and relief collide inside me. It hurt deeply, but it also freed me to fully embrace what was unfolding with Lucas. Back at Lucas's place that evening, I found him waiting with a worried look. How did it go? He asked. I sat down beside him, taking his hand again. It was hard, but necessary. I'm ready to move forward with you. Relief flooded his face, and without a word, he pulled me into a hug that felt like coming home. We started telling more people, friends who had seen us grow up together, family members who had known us as inseparable best friends. Reactions varied from surprise to support, but every conversation made us stronger. One night, after a small dinner with my parents, I found myself sitting on the porch with Lucas, the air cool and fresh. Your parents seem nice, Lucas said, lighting a cigarette. They are. They're just processing it, I think. Lucas exhaled a cloud of smoke and smiled. They'll come around. They love you. I smiled back, leaning my head on his shoulder. I hope so. It wasn't perfect. There were moments of doubt, awkward silences, and the occasional pang of jealousy or fear. But through it all, Lucas was steady, patient, reminding me that love isn't always easy, but it's worth fighting for. One evening as we walked through the city park, hand in hand, Lucas stopped and looked at me. I don't want to rush anything, he said, but do you think we could be something long-term? Could we build a future together? I squeezed his hand, heart thrumming. I want to try, with you. He smiled, that crooked, beautiful smile that had been there since we were kids. And in that moment, I felt something I hadn't in a long time. Hope, not just for us, but for the life we could build together. Sometimes, life takes you places you never expected. Sometimes, the person who's been there all along is the one who changes everything. And maybe that's the best kind of love there is. Months had passed since that turbulent wedding weekend, and life had found a new rhythm, one that felt both unfamiliar and right. Lucas and I weren't just kids playing at friendship anymore. We were partners trying to figure out what love looked like for us, day by day. We'd had our share of awkward conversations and moments of doubt, but there was something steady beneath it all, a quiet understanding that we weren't alone anymore. It wasn't perfect, and probably never would be, but it was real, and it was ours. One crisp autumn evening, Lucas and I found ourselves back at the park where so many of our childhood memories lived. The leaves were turning gold and red, a soft breeze carrying the scent of earth and change. We sat side by side on the bench, shoulders touching, watching the sky fade into twilight. Do you ever think about how different things might have been if we'd been honest sooner? I asked him, voice low. He smiled, that familiar crooked smile that always made my heart skip. Sometimes. But I think everything had to happen the way it did. We were kids back then, figuring out who we were. We needed time. I nodded, feeling the weight of those words settle in me. I'm glad it's us now. Me too, he said, his hand finding mine. Fingers intertwined, warm and steady. There was no grand gesture, no cinematic declaration. Just two people who had grown up together, who had loved and lost and found each other again in the messy middle of life. And in that simple moment, it felt like everything made sense. I thought about Daniel and the kindness and honesty that had marked our parting. I was grateful for what we'd shared, for the chapter that helped me understand what I really wanted. But this, Lucas, felt like coming home. As the stars started to peek through the darkening sky, I realized that love isn't always about fireworks or perfect timing. Sometimes, it's about patience, forgiveness, and the courage to face uncertainty together. I squeezed Lucas's hand gently and smiled. Ready to keep figuring this out? He looked over, eyes soft. Always. And with that, we stood up, walking side by side into whatever came next. Two childhood friends turned something more, learning how to love in a way that felt honest, messy, and beautifully real.